everyone, welcome to Quirky Cooking Chats. It's been a while, so nice to be back with you guys. I have been just working away and obviously not managing to get any podcasts up for a while. My apologies. But, we just all do what we can, hey? So I am preparing for my next retreat in Italy. It's very exciting. I am really looking forward to spending some time over in Europe, and I'm hoping that there's going to be sunshine, because I tell you what, we're not getting much sunshine where I live here in Far North Queensland this year. It's pretty much probably, 3 days a month that seem to be sunny. Oh, it's been dreadful. And, it's funny, I'm trying to work on having more time out in the sunlight, and this does make it hard. But in this podcast, we're going to get lots of tips for getting your sunlight exposure. And even in winter, there's ways to do that. Even when it's rainy, you can still get exposure from light outdoors, and it's still beneficial. So I have Jess from Circadian Kids on the podcast today. She's got some really great things to share. For those of you who have kids and want to get them sleeping better, want to help them to have a more regulated sleep times and wake times, but also their gut health, their moods, all of these things are affected by light. So Jess will be sharing with us her story of how she became interested in the importance of sunlight exposure and circadian rhythms. She's going to share with us a little bit how she works this into her life with young children, and how it's affected their sleep, their moods, overall well-being, both hers and her kids. And she talks about the epidemic of circadian disruption in our children and how that is affecting them, and how to manage artificial light and how to mimic the light spectrum of sunset at night so that they sleep better. Really practical tips. I think you're going to love it. So have a listen and make sure that you check the notes below for some special information from Jess and how to find her online. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Jess. It's so lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Jo.
It's great. I've been getting more and more into the sunlight and circadian rhythm sort of things since, probably a year or so. Living in Far North Queensland, like you in Far North WA, it's kind of part of life anyway. And I think some people look at our lifestyle sometimes and think, why are they never wearing shoes? And why are they always outside? But I have had those comments a lot. So it is very much part of life. But then I think when you get really busy with work and you're at a computer all the time, like I am a lot, or you're inside cooking, or you're just really busy, it's so easy to lose sight of how important that time in nature and sunlight is. And so when I saw you following me and you commented on a story, I was like, I need to get her on the show. And I also think it's a really good thing to remind parents of the importance of getting kids outside. So give us a bit of your background and tell us about your story and how you learnt the importance of sunlight.
Yeah, so, interestingly, I studied naturopathy, nutrition, and herbal medicine. I finished I graduated in 2015, and I know the exact date because 4 days later, my first child was born at 34 weeks, which
Good
was completely unexpected. I know, right? But, it was 2019. We were traveling Australia at the time. So we had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I had, a month into our trip around Australia, and I fell pregnant with our third child. On another ball. So I was actually 16 weeks pregnant with our third child, and we were in Tassie. I think we'd been in Tassie for about Tasmania, for those that don't know what Tassie is. I think we'd been there for about 8 weeks. I think we spent about 12 weeks there, all up, traveling in the van. And I love listening to podcasts, right? Like, because when you're in the car a lot, it's I usually put my earphones in and I'll listen to a really good podcast. and I had to drive to the airport. My husband was doing a FIFO at the time, which was fly in, fly out, back to the northwest of Australia to Tasmania. That's how we were doing our trip around Australia. And I just saw this podcast, and it didn't actually resonate. The title was sunlight, magnetism, and water, I think. And it didn't really like resonate.
Didn't grab you.
No, it didn't. But within, 5 minutes into the podcast, like my mind was blown, because
Wow.
I did not learn this stuff in naturopathy. Like in 3 years of full-time study, I feel like it might have been touched on in one subject, and it just completely blew my mind. And this podcast was all about the science behind circadian rhythms and sunlight, and how it shapes all of our bodily functions, including like the production and release of melatonin, which is our beautiful sleep hormone, and how all of our internal circadian clocks all function on our environment, the signals from our environment, which is the sun, the earth, the food that we eat, the food in season, even the water that we drink. So I just like was dumbfounded that I didn't learn this in my 3 years of study. So I just became obsessed, and I just started listening to more podcasts, reading more books. And so the time that I listened to that podcast, the most profound thing that came out of it, right, was to watch the morning sunrise. And I tell you what, I have never watched an intentional morning sunrise until that day, into the beginning of 2020 it was by this time. And 16 weeks pregnant, I set my alarm. I think it was like 5:30 in the morning. And we were up in the mountains in Tasmania. So I didn't actually get to see the sunrise, but I got up, I put my bare feet on the ground. It was freezing cold.
I bet.
And I watched my first intentional sunrise. Like I exposed my eyes to that first morning light. And I have literally been hooked ever since, watching every single sunrise, even not being able to actually see the sunrise, but just exposing my eyes and my skin, which I call the solar panels of the body,
Love it.
to that morning light.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is addictive. And if you lay in bed and feel lazy one morning and you sort of look outside and you're like, oh, I've got to get out there. That's, those days where you just feel like, and then sometimes I just go and lay on my little exercise trampoline outside, because I'm just like, I'm too tired to walk around. I've got my feet on the ground and I'm laying here in the sunlight. And that's all I can do today.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Oh, and that's exactly right, because it's not about like trying to witness the actual sun rising, although that is amazing for your circadian rhythms. And I'll just quickly touch on what circadian rhythms are. Yeah. So they're these biological processes within our body, and actually every plant and animal and human have this, which consists over a whole day. So for humans, it's our 24-hour daily wake sleep cycle. So the trillions of cells that are in our body, they all function on their own internal circadian clocks. And like I said before, all those internal circadian clocks rely purely on the signals that it gets from our environment. So when you're walking outside in the morning, before anything else, and exposing your solar panels, your bare naked eyes, so no sunglasses, and as much bare skin as possible, you're actually setting up the very first part of your circadian rhythm. So there's like these little light sensitive retinal proteins in the retina that signal that very first light. And this actually, wakes up your body. You start to feel that sense of hunger. Your digestion, your metabolism kicks in, your cortisol starts to rise, your melatonin lowers. Like all these functions purely rely on that light, which is literally outside of our own homes, right?
Yeah. How do you get your kids outside early? Like, I know they're young, so it is a little bit easier, but for all those parents out there thinking, how am I going to get my kids out of bed? What's some tips?
Yeah, so it's it almost actually starts like if you flip it and work from the other way. So if we
Okay.
work from sunset, so what's actually happening at sunset and what are they being exposed to after the sun goes down? So this is a big thing I love to chat about is
Mm.
how to manage your light environment at night, because that is the key to waking up with the sun. Because if you're having a late night and you're exposed to artificial blue light, you know, you've got the TV on, or you've got the LED downlights on the roof, or you know, any kind of blue light exposure, that blue light frequency, and the flicker, which you can't
Mm.
actually see with the human eye unless you really, like, if you take a time lapse and you slow down the light, you can see the flicker. And
Mm.
that's causing the same as when you walk outside in the morning, and that first light is signaling the retinal protein melanopsin to wake your body up. The same thing is happening at night because the body doesn't know how to differentiate between natural light and artificial light. And this is where kids are just like, they're
Mm.
so tired. You know, they've had such a big day, but their brains are so wired
Yep.
because all of this artificial blue light, you know, their bodies are like, oh, hang on a minute, it's daytime again. You know, they can't differentiate what's actually going on. And so what I get, you know, families to do is start from the end of the day
Mhm.
and really like take note of what your children are being exposed to after the sun goes down, because we really should be mimicking the frequency of light of sunset and darkness in the house.
Yep.
Mm.
So that's the foundation. Get your nights sorted out. So what's some practical tips for doing that?
Yes. So what we do is we will have dinner early, because this is another part of your circadian rhythm, is the digestion and your metabolism will all work optimally when the sun is still out, right?
Mm.
Once the sun goes down, all of your bodily processes also start to wind down for sleep, for that deep, restful sleep. So
Yeah.
we have dinner about an hour before the sun goes down. So it's around about between 5 and 5:30 we're having dinner at the moment.
Mhm.
And then the sun is down around 6:30. I think last light is about 7 o'clock. So we will generally have dinner outside. I think we've got like a really similar climate, Joe. I think we're
Yeah, I think
like,
so. We're on about the same.
yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot the
So
word.
we will have dinner generally outside. If it's inside, we won't have dinner under lights because we've still got the natural light coming into the house. So we won't have any lights on in the house. We'll have dinner at the dinner table, or we'll sit outside on the front lawn and have dinner. And we'll talk about this later, but light frequency of how you're eating is a really big
Mm.
part. So we will have dinner, and then I will like do a sweep of the kitchen, clean up. During that time, the kids will get their clothes on ready to go for a sunset walk. So we will go for a walk around the block. We will go to the skate park. Like, we just change it up every night, but we're usually out for about 45 minutes to an hour after
Okay.
dinner. And then we come home. And so what I've done before we've left the house is I've already mimicked the lighting in the house to sunset. So we come in the house, I've got red lights on. So we have this really cool red kitchen strip. I think you've got the kitchen strip as
I've
well,
got
don't
I've
you?
got the yellow, the amber one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. So what is happening with red light is a red light night light is a really good appropriate switch to a blue light. So
Mm.
you're completely blocking blue light when you switch to red. Even the amber or like the Sweet Dreams blue blocking globes are all fantastic. Like, we pretty much have them all.
Yeah, I think
Um,
I've got getting the whole collection.
yeah, I know. So red light at night will not trigger the suppression and depletion of melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, and also dopamine, which is our happy
Mm.
hormone. Whereas blue light, so a blue light, we're not talking about an actual blue light, we're talking about the blue light frequency in any of your white lights around your house that actually emits a blue light frequency. And what I spoke about, the melanopsin that's in the iris, that's a blue light detector. So if you've got these white lights, you know, LED lights, which I think most houses have
houses do.
LED, yeah, because they're energy, you know,
Yeah.
sufficient. But unfortunately, they are one of the most damaging lights to our health, because our brains and bodies just, you know, think it's daylight.
Yeah.
And, you know, so we mimic the light in the sunset. So we come back from the skate park, or I love to get the kids' bodies moving before going to bed, you know, just like releasing that last energy and exposing their eyes to the waning light, because that waning sunset light also has certain frequencies which help us to wind down. We've got photoreceptors on our eyes and our skin and everywhere in our body that tells us to, okay, it's time to go to sleep now. So we come inside and we, you know, the body doesn't get wound up and go into that second wind. And I have like a red light or a yellow amber light on in the bathroom and the bedrooms. We just use lamps, and we've got, you know, the blue blocking globes. The kids literally will, you know, clean their teeth and put their jammies on, and we're straight in bed. We read a book, and they are out within minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, this this is not how it has been my entire motherhood journey. I tell you, it is completely opposite, because prior to knowing about circadian rhythms, like, it was an absolute mess, and I would dread bedtime every single night.
Well, there's a bit of encouragement for those parents out there that do dread bedtime and feel like the kids just bounce off the walls and take forever to get to sleep. What's some things that you would recommend to these parents to start changing if they're in that cycle?
Yes, yeah. Do you know what? The light environment at night was the very first thing that we did. So we did the sunrise, but we also did the light environment at night, because that is the most profound and powerful thing that you can change to reset your child's circadian rhythm. Because what's happening is a lot of kids' circadian rhythms are like in this absolute circadian disruption. So when a child is in sync, and like we're talking about all humans really, because we've all got the same
Kids, yeah.
biological makeup.
Yeah.
But when a child or when a human is in sync, our bodily rhythms, like, we feel healthy, you know, like we wake in the morning and we feel fresh and energetic, like we wake with energy, and we have a healthy bowel movement, you know, we eliminate the toxins from the night before, our gut is functioning optimally, and we have this like healthy appetite for a really healthy whole food breakfast, and we start the day with a clear mind. You know, our brains and bodies they feel primed and prepped for like a productive day, really, that just flows with such ease. But when we are opposite to that, you know, and we're in this circadian disruption, like, many children's sleep, wake, and like, quote unquote behavior, because it's really just like emotions, energy moving through their body, and even their eating patterns are like completely out of whack with their internal circadian clocks, because children often these days are bathed in artificial light, day and night. You know, they spend a lot of time indoors, in front of technology, are exposed to constant non-native electromagnetic fields from like phones and Wi-Fi and TV. And essentially, like, our beautiful children are disconnected from themselves and their most pure source, which is Mother Nature, right? So we're like, our children are dealing with this internal circadian
chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and you know, these kids are just ending up, you know, feeling restless and not being able to fall asleep effortlessly. You know, they have this inconsistent and unpredictable and unregulated moods and behavior. Bowels are unregulated, their gut isn't functioning optimally. And we can literally reverse all of this, right, by simply getting back to the wisdom of nature. You know, walk outside first thing in the morning before exposing your eyes or skin to anything else. So no artificial light, no food, nothing. Just walk straight outside and put your bare feet on the ground and just witness the morning light. So I know you mentioned some tips of to how to get kids outside. Like I've tried many. So for quite a while there, I would literally, like, one child would wake up, the next child would wake up. I would just pick them up and take them straight outside. And, you know, I would be like, okay, what can we see? There's still stars. Sometimes there's still stars out, or there's planets, you know, you can see the planets out. We would like find the moon. In the winter, when we grow a lot of our own vegetables, I would say, let's go and check, you know, what's grown. We have a worm farm, like let's go check the worms. You know, there's like so many different ways that you can invite children outside in the morning.
And if they've got animals, like, let's go see the guinea pigs, let's go see the dog, let's go see the chickens, let's check for some eggs.
Yes. Yeah, we don't need to make it like a chore. Like
No,
you have to go outside
it's
first thing in the morning.
exploring.
Yeah, exploring. Like we've got trees, so the kids love climbing the trees. They've got a huge, big climbing frame, which is intentionally
I
like
saw that. It's amazing.
yeah,
So
to
good.
invite them outside more, because the more that, you know, it's got to be inviting, right?
Yes.
If it doesn't feel inviting, a child is just going to be like, no, I'm not interested. So we intentionally put these things outside to invite them outdoors more. And we have less distraction inside as well.
I think that is key, because a lot of kids are so used to having a screen going at all times, either the TV or the iPad or the phone. And it's really hard for them to pull away from that. And that's what I was thinking before, like, how have you got some good advice to help parents when they're trying to wean their kids off that in the mornings and evenings?
Yeah, I mean, the TV honestly is like such a tricky one. So we just have a firm rule that I actually take the TV cord out of the TV and out of the wall, and I put it up in,
Good idea.
yeah, I put it up in my wardrobe so the kids have no idea where it is. And we have only got the one TV. We don't have iPads or anything. Kids don't have iPads, never have, and I would like to keep that for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And so that goes away for the whole week. And then on the Friday afternoon, like if they generally they don't ask me for it, because once they haven't had TV, once a child hasn't had TV for 3 or 4 days, they're actually not interested in it.
Yeah.
And when you take the TV away, even if it's just for a day, right? And you start with anything, you start with increments, because you're going to get huge backlash, because I've been there many times when, you know, because as mothers, we go through periods of like, the TV is a great babysitter sometimes. Like even for me, it's a great babysitter sometimes. But unfortunately, I know the repercussions of putting them in front of the TV, because their brains switch into like this autopilot. They can't hear you. And when you go and turn the TV off, they become completely unregulated, because it is such an unnatural source for them. And so as much as it's a babysitter in that time, the repercussions are just too much for me. And I would just prefer to deal with the 5 or 10 minutes of them saying, you know, that I want the TV and they're yelling and screaming at me. I will just pick them up anytime I have an unregulated child. I pick them up, I hug them, and I take them straight outside, and we stand underneath the sun, bare feet on the ground. And we just stand there and just hug. And that just brings them back to, you know, regulation. And, you know, we've got to thank nature for that, because not just the sun, because the sun powers all of our internal cells and organs and bodily functions, but also putting your bare feet on the ground allows this beautiful flow of electrons that fills your body, right? Because electrons are negatively charged. And when kids are sitting in front of the TV, or they're exposed to Wi-Fi or iPads, whatever it might be, anything electrical is positively charged. So it's constantly pulling from your body, wanting to pair up with a negatively charged ion. So the way that we can then, you know, refuel our bodies with negative ions, which is like what our body needs to function and thrive, is to literally go outside, be in nature, climb a tree, just get grounded to the earth.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like that's not spoken about enough, especially with our children. I'm constantly saying to the kids, get your shoes off, guys. You know, as soon as they get home from school, it's
Yes.
shoes off, it's shirts off. They're outside, they're either in the pool, they're climbing a tree, they're climbing the frame, and they're connected back to the earth.
Yeah. That's how we grew up. We had no TV all of my childhood, and even into probably, oh, I would have probably been about 30 before we ever got a TV. And that
Wow.
lasted a few years, and we would let the kids watch Play School now and then, or my husband might watch the news rarely. But then it just kind of disappeared from our lives again. And now it's, I mean, if we want to watch something, we can use the computer or the laptop or whatever. But um, growing up like that, we were always outside. We were till it was completely dark, we were outside. So I'm very thankful to my parents for that. We were, yeah, first thing in the morning we were out. And if, you know, just even now as adults, it's such a habit for most adults. The minute you wake up with an alarm, which I find I don't need anymore, I don't bother with alarms. I wake up with the dawn. But it's such a habit to grab your phone, Instagram, Facebook, scroll, scroll, scroll. Suddenly it's an hour later and you're like, oh, I'm late. And the kids are all cranky and it's just a horrible start to the day. Like, just hide the phone. Yeah. And thankfully I've got a door right next to my bed, a screen door, and I have just the screen locked at night. So I get the breeze and the light. And so I just wake up naturally to that light, open the door, walk outside, and it's so lovely. But
Mm.
what, like, how for people that live in apartments in the city and maybe they have to get up at 7 to get their kids to the bus, or any tips there? I know we live a completely different life in the country, so it's hard
Mm.
for us to imagine, but I know there'll be people listening going, but what about this?
Yeah, and some people have to wake up before the sun comes up as well.
Yeah,
So with that,
especially
like
winter.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, like, because the climate that we live in, and you guys, Joe, is, you know, I mean, our winter is like amazing. Like our winter is the best time of the year. The
Yeah,
summer is stinking hot. So it's kind of like this flipped, right? And then some people live in the snow. So in
yeah.
our summer, you know, I follow people that are doing all these amazing things with a circadian aligned life who live in the snow. So it's 100% possible. So
Wow.
what I say is if you're waking up before the sunrise, is to use those blue blocking amber or red lights in the house.
Mm.
Because what happens is the iris and the skin will detect the blue light. If you wake up in the morning and you straight away put LED lights on and everything's bright and flashy, all of your body, it's just like this, you know, this, all your systems in your body and all your bodily organs all start to fire up,
Mm.
which is a good thing if you're about to go to work, but you don't want your cortisol to rise too quickly in the morning,
Yeah.
because that's when you're going to have issues with hormonal imbalance. There's a whole range of issues that could happen there. So what I tend to do is, because I wake up around 5 o'clock in the morning, I like to do a little meditation in the morning. Then I'll walk outside and it's usually still dark and the stars are out,
Mm.
the planets are out. I check where the moon is. And then each child will start to come out, you know, around about half an hour to an hour later. And so what I do is I have like little, you know, blue blocking book lamps, and there's, you know, an amber option or there's a red option. So if I like wanting to do some work and I want to actually wake my body up, I'll use the amber blue blocking light. If I'm still wanting to stay in that real like sleepy kind of you know, mood and vibe, I'll use the red blue blocking. So it's all about, like, you know, everyone's unique into what they're going to be doing for the day or where they're going and how they're functioning. But I would recommend using blue blocking lights, even if it's just like your amber in a globe in a lamp. Use lamps around the house, but
Mm.
avoid turning on all of your big down lights,
Yeah.
or putting the TV on. It's the same with children. like use your really your red or your amber, and then as soon as that first light comes outside, like open up all your windows and your blinds, and as soon as you see that first light, like take them outside straight away, so their receptor sites, the photoreceptors on their skin and eyes can detect that first light, then bring them back inside. But I still say avoid, blue lights and TV at least a couple of hours after sunrise. One thing that everyone asks me is like, what does your daily rhythm look like with your own children?
Yeah, tell us that, please.
So the children will wake up naturally around sunrise. Like, we don't use any alarms like you. Currently, that we're in autumn in Australia, so it's around about 6:15 a.m. on the west coast where I am is sunrise, and they will wake up. They'll walk outside, so there's zero artificial lights, no screens. They haven't had breakfast or anything. They're straight outside, and we do a little thing called glass on the grass. And this is just like literally they grab a cup or a glass and they fill up with filtered water and they walk outside. So they're not only connecting with the earth, they're, exposing themselves to the first light, but they're also like flushing their body, their system with water first thing in the morning. Then they're jumping on the climbing frame or they're in the tree. So they're moving their bodies and then they're starving, right?
Yes.
So they're back inside. We're making breakfast. They generally will eat breakfast outside, still barefoot. The kids go to school. We only live like literally 2 streets away from the school. So they ride or walk to school. And this was very intentional because I feel I've always intuitively felt that it's really important for kids to move their bodies, especially boys. I've got 2 boys and 1 girl, to move their bodies before school. So they've got, they've had at least 2 hours of being exposed to morning light, connected to the earth, moving their bodies before they actually get to school. So they're riding, walking to school. When they get home, they've got a little routine. So their lunch boxes are on the bench. We wash them straight away and we generally pack them straight away as well and into the fridge. They shirts off, school uniforms straight into the laundry, and they are usually in the pool or they're on the climbing frame, and we basically spend the afternoon outside. This is where a lot of kids will come home from school and they just want to zone out and will go straight for the TV. This is why I take the TV cord away, because even my kids, after doing this for so many years, if that TV cord's in there and they know it, they will come home and they will go straight to the TV. So the TV cord just has to be gone. They'll have something to eat. And then, we don't do any technology in the afternoons. I want them to spend as much time as possible out in nature. Then we'll have dinner, like I've said before, around the 5 o'clock mark, because it's around 6:30 is sunset at the moment. Then they'll jump on their bikes or their skateboards. Twice a week, I do a HIIT session, a high intensity workout at 5:30 p.m. So that's at the skate park. So that's just like works out perfect. I do my HIIT session and they are at the skate park. They all skateboard and just love being there. And then, we come home and it's like I said before, it's really simple. I think kids really like consistency and rhythms and rituals because I have seen it with my own kids. They really thrive with this consistency and they really thrive when their bodies align with the sun, because that's how their natural biology is set up. It's set up to work in partnership with the sun. Yeah. So that is how our daily rhythm looks. On the weekends, it's slightly different if they want to watch a movie. So TV never goes on in the morning, ever. That's like a number 1 rule in our house. No technology until sort of around midday on the weekends, where they might watch, we might watch a family movie, or, I might put them in the front of the TV because I need a bit of space for an hour or 2, but then the TV's off. So it's always off by around 3, 4 o'clock, the latest on a weekend, because then I want them there outside. And this is all driven by the parent, right? Yeah. And this is the thing, like we have to model this for our children. So everything that I do for them, I do for myself.
Exactly. not going to work otherwise.
no, it just is not
if you're
going to
sitting there on your phone.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I have to be very conscious
Yeah.
of what I do, and like what I do in front of them is really important. So yeah, that's kind of how our daily rhythm, that's what I call a solar powered rhythm is kind of what I've called it. And that's really what I am focused and passionate about in teaching families, is how to integrate this solar powered rhythm into their lives.
It's really good. Can you talk a bit about the food side of things with the importance of food and sunlight?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I read about, like, I've always understood seasonal eating, why to eat in season, but I felt like it didn't quite make sense until I read something really cool from Dr. Jack Kruse. So he was the podcast I listened to in early 2020. It was his podcast I listened
Yeah,
to.
I figured it must have been.
Yeah. And it's so funny because a lot of people that are in the circadian rhythm, like that are talking about this now, it was around the same time in 2020 where it was like highlighted that, wow, okay, this is what our bodies actually need to function and to thrive.
And
so
how ironic that that was right at the time we were all told to stay inside.
I know, how funny. And I started really talking about this on a different account. I only started Circadian Kids about 8 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was something that I've wanted to do for the last 4 years. But yeah, it only really hit me 7 months ago. My dad actually passed away, and about a month before, I was sitting next to his bedside, and we've talked about circadian rhythms for years, since 2020, and Dad was really, really big on it. Like he had cancer for a long time and was sick for the last probably 3 years, but he still thrived because every day he was out in the midday sun exposing all of his solar panels, and his body was still thriving, and he was just, he'd given a very short span to live, and he thrived for many, many years. And so he was really inspired by whatever I would talk about with the kids and circadian rhythms. And he was like, Jess, just do it, just start it. People need to know this stuff. And it was so funny. I started like looking on Google and Instagram and Facebook. I was just hoping that someone else was talking about this. I was like,
then you wouldn't have to do it.
Really have to do this? Can someone else? And there is no one talking about circadian rhythms for kids. There's a lot now talking about it with adults, and talking about circadian rhythms in general, but no one's talking about it with our children. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll start. So yeah, back to the food and eating seasonally. I only really started to understand this when we started growing our own food. So this was about 4 years ago. And I just started slowly. I started with herbs, and then every single year I've built up like bigger beds and more space. And I'm growing all organic, and I'm growing whatever I can grow in season for where we live.
Yeah.
And generally just the winter, because I grow small amounts in the summer, because literally we can have a 45-degree day and it wipes out everything.
Wow.
So that happened last year. It wiped out all of our, in the summer, all of our really water-dense fruits, like watermelon and rock melon, all of that. So it just completely wiped out and shriveled it up. And it was really disappointing for the kid.
We have the opposite here. We get the rain in the summer and it just rots everything.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Well, we get the cyclones, but very far and few between. So it does dry up. So what's actually happening, like, if I can sort of explain it in a simple way, is that the UV frequencies are actually penetrating our food while it's growing, right? And this should match the sunlight from where it's growing to the sunlight that we're actually exposing our eyes and our skin to, because that helps the brain to coordinate optimal digestion and metabolism. So it's really cool. Like, research has shown that food actually carries light photons on its electrons and tells the mitochondria, which is in all of our cells, which is our powerhouse of our cells, to what season it is. which
Wow.
just like
Mind blowing.
blew my mind. I know the body is so magnificent.
Yes.
So what happens is, like, you can imagine this signaling that's going on inside of our bodies. If we're eating food that is out of season or from another country, the body gets confused and it's not digesting and metabolizing the food as it should optimally. And this actually goes the same for the way the light that we eat our food under. So we can make the most amazing, organic, whole food, fresh, homemade meal, right? It can be the most beautiful meal. But then if you sit down at the dinner table after sunset when it's dark outside and you're sitting under LED lights, the way that your body digests and metabolizes that is not going to be optimal if you're eating before sunset and outside in the right light. So the light frequency in how you are eating your food is having a really big circadian chaos within your body of how it's digesting and actually being used and absorbed within your body. So that was also really fascinating. I found that out about 3 or 4 years ago. So that's something that we do in our home every single night, is really consciously where we eat. We always eat before the sun is up. What the kids know, if that sun's down, there's no food.
Okay.
Like, that is how it works in our house.
Do you ever have like a cuppa at night? I'm just wondering, asking for a friend.
Yeah, so my hubby and I will, like, once the kids are down, most of the time we actually go to bed as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
Did you
that's
get
just,
up early?
yeah, we're up early, and that's just how our bodies are primed and prepped to wind down the same time as the kids, right? And not then go grab the ice cream or the chocolate and sit in front of Netflix.
Like a lot of
You know, yeah, I used to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I can speak from experience. That's what I did.
I
But we'll
remember
have like a,
spending that time cleaning until like 10 o'clock because I didn't get it done in the day and it was too hard. So
yeah.
you managed to keep up with the housework during the daylight hours, or do you just go, I'll do it tomorrow?
It depends, and you'll probably get a different answer if you ask me or if you ask my husband.
Same.
Yep. Yeah, look, I make sure that, so when the kids are eating outside, we all eat together, and then the kids go and get their bikes and everything ready. That's when I'll clean the kitchen.
Okay, yeah.
And then during the day, like, you know, I say to the kids before we leave to go to the skate park, the playroom and the lounge room needs to be clean. And that's just, they'll do it, you know, because they want to get out. They want to get out and about. They want to go to see their friends down at the skate park. And so it's just, we just work in unison. It doesn't always go as smooth, you know, every night. But yeah, most of the time the house is clean before we go to sleep.
Yeah.
No one wants to wake up to a messy house, right?
I think the thing is that the later you leave everything, the harder it just like snowballs. And if you're having dinner at 6:30, 7:30, and then you're cleaning up, and then you're trying to get the kids in the baths and to bed, suddenly it's 9, 10 o'clock and you're just exhausted. Yeah. So yeah, the early dinner is such a good idea, especially with small kids.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, it's all choice what you do in the afternoon as well, because we choose not to keep the kids busy with all of these sports and, you know, all of these things.
You're constantly out.
Yeah, because a lot of these you know, things that we book our kids in, like in the afternoons, are generally indoors as well. So the kids will do one sport, like that's it. So it's one afternoon. Yeah, and it's generally straight after school as well.
Yeah.
And on those days, I make sure that I cook dinner at lunchtime.
Yeah.
So it's done. And I'm a thermo user.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the thermo gets an absolute bashing many times a day, for breakfast and dinner pretty much every single day. And so I love it because I will make a meal in the thermo and I will just keep it in the pot, and then I'll warm it up. So we'll get home from the sports. At the moment it's autumn, we're just finishing up with basketball. So I don't have to think about it. Dinner's ready. You know, I come home, warm it up, the kids eat, we're out the door, you know, on our ride. Like, you've got to keep it really simple for yourself. I think that is the key.
It is. feel like I interrupted you before because I got on a tangent. Um, the food side of things. Did we finish talking about that? So there's probably studies that you can share with us on some of these things. If you think of any that you might want me to put in the links in the notes, because I know people will be interested in that, or people can contact you and say, where do you get this information from?
Yes,
Because
a lot
it
of books.
fascinates me. I saw if you posted it or someone in the circadian sort of world did, about how their mind keeps getting blown every time, like they hear some crazy thing about how the sunlight affects hormones, or the sunlight, eating your food in the right, and they're like, oh, that's rubbish. And then they look it up and they find a study and they're like, oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I read a lot and I listen to podcasts and read books, but I think at the end of the day, and I say this to everyone, it comes down to your intuition, right?
It
Like
does.
what
You can
actually
experience it.
intuitively, yeah, what intuitively feels good for you. Like for me, I
Mm.
feel so good. My body thrives when I walk out in the morning and I just like connect in with nature, because we are not separate from nature. Like we are a part of nature. Our children are part of nature, but they have this disconnection going on that
Mhm.
it's just a remembrance, really. Like I'm not teaching
Mm.
anything new. It's just remembering
Yeah.
how we once lived and how our ancestors once lived, in in unison with the sun and the earth and
The
the
natural
natural,
rhythms.
yeah, natural rhythms and the food that's growing in our environment. It's
Mm.
all like this is not new stuff. And there's definitely studies. I mean, there's studies that you can read, but it comes back to what intuitively feels good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Well, I know I feel so much better when I just get up, walk outside into the garden, start checking out what's been growing, pull out some weeds. And when you don't, some mornings you feel like I just want to sleep in, but you get into sync with this way of living and you can't sleep in.
No.
And you
Yeah.
just get up and you just feel so much better when you do. Bit of
Yes.
movement and you're fine. You're not sleepy
Yeah.
anymore.
No.
Um, but I think for people that are just still struggling with going to bed late, getting up late, rushing through the day, rushing through their mornings, first step, start pulling your evening schedule back, right? Start getting dinner ready earlier. Seems like those are the takeaways from what you're saying. Get dinner ready earlier, get things tidy, and then just go outside for a while.
Yeah, yeah. There's 4 steps that I get people to follow.
Oh,
Four
great.
really, really simple steps.
I like bullet points.
Yeah, yeah. So the first one is expose your eyes to the morning light. It doesn't need to be sunrise. You don't need to set your alarm for sunrise. Just when you wake up, walk
Mhm.
straight outside. Don't do anything else unless you need to go and move your bowels. Do that first. And then walk outside and expose your eyes to the morning light. Number 2 is just to connect in with nature regularly. If you're sitting in front of the computer a lot during the day, you're sitting down. If you need to set alarms every hour and just walk outside, like connect in your bare feet as much as you can. Put your bare feet on the earth. The third one is spend time in the sun. I think a lot of us are afraid of the sun. But what's actually happening, our receptor sites on our skin, our photoreceptors, people are having a lot of trouble this day and age because we're exposed to a lot of blue light and not enough sunlight. So take it in increments. When we're in the heat of the summer, I don't know if you've seen my stories, but I lay out every single day in the sun, in the midday sun. In the summer,
Wow.
when the UV is 14 or 15, it's usually like 8 minutes each side for me. Again, intuition, sensations of the skin. Like you can use an app called D
Mm.
Minder, and that will show you your latitude, your location of what the UV is, and your skin type and how long it takes to actually build up the vitamin D that's needed for you, uniquely you, right? So spend more time in the sun, because the research I've done is children are spending less than 2 hours in the sun these days. 2 hours. We've got 24, 12 hours of sunlight in the day, and children are spending less than 2 hours in the sun.
Sad.
Yeah, and then number 4 is to manage your light environment at night. So look at changing, even if it's just a couple of, say if you're using lamps, turn off your LED downlights, use a couple of lamps, even if it's just the kids' room, start with the kids' room and put a lamp in there, a blue blocking globe. And we sleep in complete darkness. So we have 0 lights on. When the kids were a lot younger, like babies, we used a red light. And we do have one little red light that's on in the bathroom. So if they get up during
Just a
the
little
night,
night light.
yeah, just a little red night light that plugs into the wall, so they can see during the night. But otherwise, we sleep in complete darkness, because even a small little night light can send a message to the brain if a child wakes up that it's daylight. And you get those kids, that wake up during the night and they're awake for hours. I used to have one of those kids.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's encouraging that you do
and
anymore.
the amount of feedback that like every time I go onto my social media, there's always a message from someone to say, wow, Jess, all I did was change out the toilet light that's on all night to, a red globe, and my kid is sleeping through. Like, this is literally like how simple it gets to be. Like, simply follow the wisdom of nature, spend more time in nature, pay attention to the rhythms. Yeah. Get rid of the light at night. Pay attention to the rhythms, the cycles of the sun, the moon, the changing of the seasons, and really adopt habits and rituals that help you to stay grounded and connected to the natural world. That's like, I just have such a passion to share this with families, because so many children are struggling with their health. And I see it day in, day out. And simply like following the wisdom of nature, removing light at night can literally transform your entire lives, their well-being, their health, their quality of sleep. Just literally can transform everything for you.
Yeah, that's really good. One little thing that I was thinking for people who go, okay, well, I just can't go out and spend heaps of money on heaps of lights, candles and natural light. I think that's really how I started. I just started having the tea lights all around the place in little jars. Like I'd have them on the windowsill or on the, in the bathroom. And they don't cost much, and it's a good start. But yeah, little by little, I've changed out the globes and added the light strip and bought a little night light here and there. And there's specials, and you can keep an eye out for those. There's one at the moment, actually.
Yes. And this is it, Joe. Like, literally, you don't have to be overwhelmed and be like, oh my God,
do everything at
I've got to
once.
change everything.
Yeah.
Like, we've been doing this for 4 years, and
Exactly.
I'm still learning. I'm still gradually changing things up. But it's just about making the change and being consistent with it, and just creating a beautiful ritual with your children. The reason why I don't say candles is because my 3-year-old just blows them out. Like, I mean, I've always got candles on my desk going, and he comes in and he just blows it out straight away.
That's cute.
So, but we started with the Sweet Dreams blue blocking globes, and all I did, I've just got IKEA lamps. I think I've got 5 around the house, and I just changed those out. And I think they were only about around the $20 mark each. Even if you just started with one, like, just start. I think that's the biggest thing, is just start and then let it evolve over time. It doesn't have to all happen in one day.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, those were really good tips. And I think that a lot of people will find that really helpful. And it has made a huge difference for my sleep. I find that I am so sleepy at night, and I'm out like a light when I go to bed and wake up with the dawn. But yeah, kids too I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle with sleep with their kids. And I know when my son Isaac was really struggling with OCD, and anxiety and all of that kind of thing, we had to really work on his sleep and lowering the lights at night and candles and all of that kind of thing. And it did make a big difference. Be encouraged, guys. Jess has shared that her kids were still in that stage at first, and she transitioned, and you can too. But yeah, thank you so much for your wisdom, Jess, and for your encouragement. Do you have some things you want to tell us about on your site or social media that could be helpful going forward for people?
Yeah, at the moment I'm mainly just on Instagram, which is Circadian Kids, Circadian.kids. And I just love to like share what we do as a family, because I think that's really
That
important,
helps.
is to show like how we do it in real time
Yep.
with young children. You've got a 3, 6, and 8-year-old, and we've been doing it since I was 16 weeks pregnant with the third child. So we've been doing it for quite a while. And, I just love to be able to share how we do it on a daily basis through real-time experience. And yeah, so I have actually got a couple of free, if you go onto my Instagram and go into my link tree, there's the 4 steps that I talked about. I go into more detail in those 4 steps to resetting your circadian rhythm. And I've also got a handbook on there, which is managing your light environment at night. So that'll go through all the steps that we took to, everything that we've just spoken about managing a light environment at night is all in that handbook. So you can download that for free
Perfect.
as well. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. All right. Well, I'll put a link to your Instagram below, and if you guys go in and have a look, it's lovely that you're giving those away for free. Thank you.
No
All
problem.
right.
Thank you so much for allowing me to, come on here and just like share my passion for this. It's been a long time coming, and it's just really nice to like, it lights me up to talk about this stuff. It's like,
No,
I
it's
feel
so
like,
good.
I feel like this is such a simple change that families can make to have such transformative, in their health and their sleep. Like, and that's for our children, right? Like our beautiful
Yeah.
little children of this earth, we want to see them thrive. And I want to see every single children thrive just like my children do.
Yeah. And without good sleep, it's pretty hard. So we all need
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks so
so
much,
much.
Joe.
All right. Thanks, guys. And don't forget to go and check out Jess's page, Circadian Kids. Bye.